For centuries, Mars and Venus have stood as Earth's planetary siblings, two nearby worlds that orbit the same sun, shaped by the same cosmic forces, yet molded into vastly different destinies. In the quest to find a second home for humanity, both of these planets have risen as candidates, each offering a promise wrapped in mystery. But which one truly holds the greater potential for life, not just microbial survival, but a future where humanity might walk under alien skies and thrive? Look at Mars. Cold, dry, barren, but also familiar. It rotates nearly as fast as Earth, giving it a day only slightly longer than ours. Its polar ice caps grow and shrink with the seasons, and it has a thin atmosphere, mostly carbon dioxide, but one that still whispers of ancient rivers, long-lost lakes, and perhaps even oceans. Mars seems to carry echoes of a time when it was more alive. Ancient riverbeds carve across its surface, and minerals found by robotic explorers suggest that water once flowed freely. These are not wild speculations. They are scientific truths uncovered by years of careful exploration. Life, if it ever existed on Mars, may have left behind fossils, hidden deep beneath its crimson crust. Now glance in the other direction. Toward Venus, the so-called sister planet. Nearly the same size as Earth, Venus should have been a paradise, but somewhere in its distant past, something went terribly wrong. Today, it's a hellscape cloaked in clouds of sulfuric acid, with surface temperatures hot enough to melt lead. The pressure at ground level is crushing over 90 times what we feel on Earth. Yet strangely, it might be precisely this alien intensity that makes some scientists take Venus seriously. They point to its upper atmosphere, 50 kilometers above the surface, where the temperature and pressure are far more Earth-like. Could floating habitats hover there, protected from the hostile surface below, harvesting energy from the sun and chemicals from the thick clouds? Each planet tells a cautionary tale. Mars reminds us how a world can die, slowly, its magnetic field fading, its atmosphere slipping into space, its warmth vanishing. Venus screams of a different fate. Runaway greenhouse effects, skies thick with carbon dioxide, and feedback loops that turned a potentially habitable planet into a nightmare. In studying both, we understand Earth better, and we glimpse the delicate balance required for life to take hold. Mars has been the focus of human dreams for decades. Robotic missions have trundled across its surface, digging, sniffing, and listening. The hope is that under its dusty plains, in icy patches or briny seeps, some ancient bacteria might still cling to existence. The journey to Mars is long and dangerous, but within the realm of current technology, space agencies around the world are racing to put boots on its soil, possibly within our lifetimes. If humanity can adapt to the cold and the radiation, if we can build pressurized habitats and extract water from the reef, Mars may become a cradle for a new branch of civilization. Venus, in contrast, offers a more daunting challenge. No rover has survived its surface for more than a few hours before being destroyed by the intense heat and pressure. Yet some dreamers imagine airships sailing through its temperate upper skies, free from the need to terraform the entire planet. The gravity is closer to Earth's than Mars's, and sunlight is more abundant. In theory, it's easier to keep floating colonies aloft than to burrow into Martian soil. But the lack of direct exploration leaves many questions unanswered. What strange chemistry hides in those yellow clouds? Could exotic microbial life already exist, suspended in the air, surviving off sulfur and sunlight? The question isn't just which planet could possibly support life. It's about which one offers the most realistic path forward. Which one can be reached, studied, settled, and sustained? The answer isn't as clear-cut as it may seem. Both Mars and Venus challenge our assumptions. Both make us re-examine what life needs and how fragile or resilient it can be. This is not just a scientific debate. It's a story about hope, risk, and the raw ambition of a species looking beyond its home. We stand at a crossroads between two very different worlds. One red, cold, and ancient. One bright, scorching, and cloud-covered. Mars versus Venus. It's not a simple matter of choosing where we'd like to go. It's about where life has the best chance not just to exist, but to flourish.
As we move deeper into the debate between Mars and Venus, the focus shifts from surface comparisons to the real possibilities for sustaining life. Beyond colorful artist renderings and dramatic temperature charts lies the core question. Where could human life not just survive, but actually grow, adapt, and flourish? When the first settlers arrive, be they robots or people, which planet will give them a fighting chance at building something lasting? Mars remains the more popular candidate in most discussions, largely because its conditions, while still extreme, seem closer to what we can work with. It's a rocky, solid planet, which makes it easier to imagine bases, mining operations, and even greenhouses. Its day is almost the same length as Earth's, just over 24 hours, and it experiences seasons. These seemingly small features actually make a big difference when designing long-term settlements. A day-night cycle close to our own helps regulate sleep and circadian rhythms, which in turn affects mental health, hormone balance, and overall well-being. Even something as basic as timekeeping on Mars feels manageable. The lower gravity on Mars, around 38% of Earth's, introduces unknowns. We don't yet know what living for years under such conditions will do to the human body. Bone loss, muscle atrophy, and changes to blood flow are just a few of the concerns astronauts already face after months on the International Space Station. On Mars, even with exercise, those problems could worsen over the long term. Still, it's not as bad as zero gravity. Some gravity is better than none, and it opens the door to potential countermeasures like special suits or rotating habitats. Mars' thin atmosphere poses another issue. It's composed mostly of carbon dioxide and offers virtually no protection against radiation. Without Earth's thick atmosphere and magnetic field, Mars is constantly exposed to solar and cosmic radiation. This means any habitat will need to be well shielded, possibly buried under Martian soil, housed in lava tubes, or built using materials designed to deflect or absorb harmful rays. There's no possibility of walking outside without a pressurized suit, and the air is far too thin to breathe. But for engineers and scientists, these are technical hurdles, not impossibilities. What makes Mars especially promising is the presence of water. Water ice has been detected at the poles and beneath the surface. Some areas might even have salty liquid water, though the evidence is still debated. Water isn't just essential for drinking. It can be split into oxygen for breathing and hydrogen for fuel. It can hydrate crops grown in Martian soil, assuming we can enrich that soil enough to support plant life. These reserves turn Mars from a barren wasteland into a place where human effort might one day carve out a sustainable ecosystem. Of course, life on Mars won't resemble anything we have on Earth, not at first. Early habitats would likely be small, tightly sealed modules. Food would be grown under artificial light, and every drop of water would be recycled. The outside world would be beautiful but deadly. Mars skies are tinted a strange orange-red, its sunsets blue. Dust storms can stretch across the entire planet, lasting for weeks and reducing visibility to near zero. But unlike Venus, Mars invites you to walk its ground, to build, to claim a small piece of a vast silence. In contrast, Venus presents a very different challenge, one that forces us to completely rethink our assumptions. On the surface, Venus is a nightmare. Temperatures reach levels hot enough to melt lead. The pressure is more than 90 times that of Earth. Storms rage in an atmosphere thick with carbon dioxide and clouds of sulfuric acid. Any spacecraft we've landed there has survived only hours. There is no chance for surface colonization with today's technology. And yet, above that hostile ground, at around 50 to 60 kilometers in altitude, something strange happens. At those heights, the atmosphere of Venus becomes surprisingly Earth-like. Pressure drops to about 1 bar, the same as sea level on Earth. Temperatures cool to levels humans can tolerate, ranging from 30 to 50 degrees Celsius. There's no solid ground to stand on, but the air is so dense that a large enough balloon, filled with breathable air, would float naturally. In other words, Venus offers a region in its sky where humans could theoretically live in floating habitats, giant airships drifting peacefully above the chaos below. This concept isn't fantasy. Engineers have already outlined designs for such structures. Inside, people could live in shirt sleeves. Solar power would be abundant. Venus receives far more sunlight than Earth, and radiation would not be a problem thanks to the thick atmosphere. These floating cities could produce oxygen from atmospheric carbon dioxide and potentially gather elements needed for fuel or agriculture. Unlike Mars, where colonization requires digging, shielding, and endless insulation from the cold, Venus offers an environment that's actually more Earth-like, if you stay in the right altitude range. There's also the tantalizing question of alien life. In 2020, scientists detected phosphine gas in the Venusian atmosphere, a chemical that, on Earth, is often associated with microbial life. The discovery sparked widespread excitement, though later studies called it into question. Still, the possibility remains. Could there be floating life in the clouds of Venus? Even if the answer turns out to be no, The mere idea reshapes how we think about habitability. Life, it seems, doesn't need soil or oceans. It might survive in acid-laced clouds if the conditions are just right. But Venus also brings immense technological barriers. Getting to the safe zone in the clouds requires passing through layers of extreme heat and pressure. Any mission must be equipped to survive those conditions during entry and descent. Building anything there would involve a level of aerial engineering we've never achieved. No one has ever built a floating city on Earth. Doing it on Venus would demand bold innovation and risk. We are far from turning this dream into reality. Yet, the physics are sound. The potential is real. The real question becomes one of focus. Do we want to live on the ground, where construction is hard but direct? Or do we want to master flight, turning the sky into our new surface? Mars is the slow, steady path, difficult but familiar. Venus is the leap into the unknown, a challenge to everything we think we know about where life belongs. Another way to frame the question is through sustainability. Mars, though cold and dry, may be terraformed over centuries. Scientists have proposed ways to heat the planet, release CO2 from its soil, and thicken the atmosphere. Massive efforts, to be sure, but not impossible ones. With enough time and energy, Mars might one day grow plants in open air, support rain, even develop shallow seas. Venus, however, is a different story. Cooling it down would mean removing or blocking the sun, changing its chemical makeup, and reversing a greenhouse effect that has raged for billions of years. That challenge is orders of magnitude greater. But what if terraforming isn't the goal? What if the plan is simply to survive, not to remake the planet, but to adapt ourselves? In that case, Venus becomes far more appealing. A colony could float, generate power from the sun, and live indefinitely in the sky without ever needing to touch the scorched surface. It's a kind of parallel evolution, not of species, but of civilization. As we enter the final chapter of this cosmic comparison, the conversation shifts from speculation to strategy. Humanity is no longer just wondering if we can live on Mars or Venus, but rather how we will do it, and what each path will mean for the future of our species. These two planets aren't merely destinations in space, they are reflections of two possible futures. They offer us distinct challenges and philosophies of survival, one rooted in harsh solidity, the other in floating potential. Now, it's time to take a deeper dive into what living on either world might truly feel like, socially, psychologically, and culturally, and how these new environments might reshape humanity itself. Imagine waking up on Mars 100 years from now. You live in a pressurized dome surrounded by vast red plains. Outside, the landscape is still, almost ancient, like a memory frozen in time. The sky, tinged with orange dust, casts everything in a muted glow. Your home is built into the rock, insulated from radiation, temperature extremes, and the relentless wind. Life here is tightly structured. You can't open a window. You can't walk outside without a full suit. Every breath you take has passed through a filtration system. But despite the constraints, you feel a quiet pride. You are part of the first generation to call another planet home, not just as a visitor, but as a settler. Social life on Mars would revolve around the collective. Resources are limited, and survival depends on cooperation. A single malfunction, an air leak, a failed crop, a power outage, could threaten the entire colony. People would live in close quarters, sharing everything from meals to medical equipment. Privacy would be rare, but so would loneliness. There is a strong sense of purpose. Each person has a role. Every action, from maintaining hydroponic gardens to repairing solar panels, contributes directly to the community. Over time, this could give rise to a new kind of culture, one that values resilience, resourcefulness, and deep social bonds. Now picture life above Venus. Your home floats in the upper atmosphere, suspended like a ship among clouds. Outside, the sky is a bright, sulfurous yellow, thick with swirling gases. But inside the habitat, the air is warm, breathable, and softly humming with energy. You can walk around without a suit. You can look out a window and see the endless horizon below, a world you'll never touch. The colony drifts in constant motion, powered by solar energy and supported by the very air it breathes. Everything is designed to be lightweight, mobile, and sustainable. You are not on Venus. You are within it, sailing its skies like an airborne voyager. Life here feels surreal, dreamlike. The environment is alien but not hostile, at least not at the altitudes where you live. Floating habitats are linked together by bridges and suspended platforms. Movement between them happens via pressurized walkways or small airships. Unlike the Martian settlers who walk upon rock, you live in a place where the ground is a myth and everything around you is fluid. Social structures might be more flexible, more experimental. People would be forced to innovate, to redefine concepts of home, ownership, and space. After all, your entire world is suspended in the air. Psychologically, these two environments would shape human beings in vastly different ways. On Mars, the harshness of the landscape reinforces a survivalist mindset. You're always aware of how close death is, just a thin wall away. This could create a population deeply aware of risk, meticulous, cautious, but also bold and driven. It might inspire a new kind of stoicism, a culture that accepts limitations and thrives within them. Art and music on Mars might be minimalistic, reflecting the scarcity of materials. Philosophy might center around endurance, legacy, and the transformation of dead worlds into living ones. On Venus, by contrast, the environment is paradoxically more forgiving and more alien. Floating cities would never be completely stable. They would sway with the wind, adapt to pressure changes, and require constant adjustments. This could foster a mindset of fluidity, of resilience through flexibility rather than control. Venusian culture might lean toward the artistic and abstract. After all, what better setting for dreamers than a city in the clouds? Language, too, might evolve differently. On Mars, words might revolve around geology, machinery, and construction. On Venus, they might focus on currents, layers, and light. The physical differences between the two colonies would also influence human biology. On Mars, reduced gravity could permanently alter the human body. Children born there might grow taller with lighter bones and longer limbs. Over generations, this could lead to a new form of human evolution, a Martian subspecies adapted to low gravity, thin air, and artificial light. Their muscles might be weaker, but their lungs and circulatory systems more efficient. On Venus, the story would be different. Gravity is close to Earth's, so the changes might be more psychological than physical. But the atmosphere, rich in carbon dioxide, filled with trace chemicals, might still influence human biology through subtle long-term exposure. What's more, the different colonies would influence technology in different ways. Mars would become a haven for terraforming science, geology, and environmental engineering. New methods of mining, heating, and atmospheric manipulation would evolve. Robotics would dominate the landscape, handling dangerous or repetitive tasks. Venus, on the other hand, would push advances in aerostat design, atmospheric chemistry, and airborne infrastructure. Lightweight materials, modular architecture, and floating agriculture would become common. In time, both worlds could become testbeds for breakthroughs that would feed back into Earth's own development. And yet, despite their differences, both planets would rely heavily on Earth for decades, if not centuries. Supply ships, funding, political support, all would be vital. This raises another question. How will life on Mars and Venus change our relationship with Earth? Will we view our home planet with nostalgia, with regret, or with renewed determination to protect it? Colonizing other worlds doesn't make Earth less important. It makes it more precious. The further we go, the clearer that becomes. But there's also a risk, a psychological distance that grows with every kilometer traveled. Martian colonists may begin to see themselves as separate, as pioneers forging a new destiny. Venusian settlers might feel adrift, disconnected, perhaps even superior in their aerial cities. Political and cultural rifts could form. Over generations, identities would change. What begins as an Earth project could evolve into something autonomous. Would Martians still consider themselves Earthlings? Would Venusian cloud dwellers even recognize terrestrial struggles as relevant to them? Eventually, Both colonies would strive for self-sufficiency. Mars might begin melting polar ice caps to create lakes. Venus might develop massive airborne farms sustained by high-efficiency hydroponics. Trade between the two worlds could emerge, exchanging rare minerals from Mars for biochemical products or technologies from Venus. A new interplanetary economy could rise, with Earth as the hub, or perhaps just one node among many.